All right, I hope you guys are still with me. I'm on fire today with some caffeine, and I hope you guys are doing okay. If it's one hope of mine, it is that you guys are happy and healthy right now, and you're not suffering too much staying at home. I'm trying to keep my own mental health together. I told you I broke my finger, which kind of sucks, but I'm living through it. It's really hard to take a shower and do dishes because the doctor doesn't want me to get this finger wet, which sucks. Okay. But apart from that, let me go back to chapter 11, sharing my screen again with you guys. Please don't tell me this thing is going back. Okay, now objective 4, good. Okay, so we're going to talk about demand characteristics, the placebo effect, and experimenter bias, and then we're going to do a little activity, and all of this will be done. Okay, so threats to internal validity. These are the things that get in the way of determining cause and effect. So anything that is messing with internal validity is messing with your ability to conclude that your IV, your independent variable, caused your DV, your dependent variable. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of this stuff. Okay, participant expectations is one big issue, the demand characteristics. So let's go back to that brownie study. Do brownies increase concentration? Okay. If you tell people that that's what the study was about, then it could influence their behavior. So remember, we got 100 people, we're gonna randomly assign 50 of them to eat the brownies and 50 of them don't eat the brownies, and then they're given a test and we see what their concentration is on the test. If you tell them beforehand that this is about whether brownies increase concentration, you've got a problem. Because of what we call demand characteristics, you have basically, not by, not intentionally, but you've placed a demand on them. You're telling them that we expect you to really concentrate after you eat these brownies for the brownie group, right? And so what happens to participants is they tend to be cooperative. Instead of acting natural, they act in the way that you want them to act. So that group that ate the brownies, all of a sudden they're concentrating really, really hard. And so one of the ways in which we deal with this is something called deception. And with deception, you might tell essentially a lie, or you don't be completely honest with them. Instead, you say, well, we're going to do this experiment on concentration. And we've got some brownies here. So while you're waiting, feel free to have some brownies. We say that to the brownie group, but we don't say it to the other group. Now, notice, we didn't tell them that it was about the brownies affecting their concentration. We said it was about concentration. And then we said, go ahead and have some brownies. So we didn't tell them the whole truth about it. And that's called deception, is when you don't tell the whole truth of the matter. And that will keep them from associating the brownies with the concentration task. Okay. Another problem that we have with participant expectations is what's called the placebo effect. And this is the tendency for people to report that any treatment has helped them regardless of any actual benefit. Okay, so when we test drugs to see if they're effective, we might have a drug, say, for high blood pressure, right? And we test it against a placebo. A placebo is a completely inert substance. It does nothing, right? It is, some people say it's a sugar pill, but it won't even have sugar in it necessarily. It would just be a pill that doesn't have any blood pressure medication in it. So we have blood pressure medication over here and a placebo over here. We randomly assign people to these two groups. And what we find generally is that people's blood pressure goes down in both groups. But in the drug group, what we're looking for is that it goes down even more than in that placebo group. So that's what's really important, is a goal is to show that the drug is more effective than the placebo, because placebos always work is the thing. So, that's the problem with drug studies that show straight percentages. So if you say, see a drug for weight loss, they often do this for weight loss, is they try to fool you. They say, 50% of people or 80% of people who took this drug lost weight. Not surprising, the placebo effect might be that much. It might be 50%, it might be 80%. So what we need is a drug that is working better than a placebo. So our expectations make a difference. If we take a drug and we think that it's going to do something, it will tend to do that. Even with basic physiological processes like blood pressure, but even worse for something like depression or something like that. So we've got to make sure we have that placebo control as opposed to the control group where they get no drug at all. So we don't want drug versus no drug. We want drug versus placebo. Okay, finally, we have experimenter bias. And experimenter bias is when an experimenter influences the results of the experiment. And they do it because they act differently in different conditions. So for example, let's say that we're testing the effects of alcohol on driving. And so we give alcohol to some students and then we watch them drive, right? They drive around a little course, and we don't give alcohol to another group of students and we watch them drive. But me, I'm the experimenter and I know exactly which students got alcohol. So if that's the case, what can happen is that I notice where students are leaving when I know that they've had alcohol, and I don't notice it so much if I think they have not had alcohol. So simply me knowing that is a problem. And so what we do is we actually hide that information even from the experimenters themselves, not to mention the students. So we'll talk about how we do that. Okay, so how do we control these problems? We do it through a double-blind study, and that's when both participants and the experimenters are not aware of which group received the placebo and which group received the treatment. So if we were going to run that alcohol study, what we would do is we would randomly assign students to receive alcohol versus a non-alcoholic placebo. So that would be like something like give them real beer versus non-alcoholic beer, but don't tell them which one they got. And then don't tell the experimenter who's watching them drive around the course what they got. So no one knows what they got. And then we can really see whether the alcohol had an effect apart from the experimenter bias and the participant effects. So unfortunately, you can't really make a placebo in a lot of cases, or it's harder to make a placebo. In the case of alcohol, maybe, it's fairly easy to make a believable placebo, but it may be more difficult in the case of some other things. So I don't know, if you were testing marijuana, I'm not sure you could get a marijuana placebo that would really be the same flavor and smoke the same way and everything else like that. So a lot of times, it's just simply not possible to do it that way. But if you can do it that way, we try to do it that way. And then finally, the single blind study is just when either the participant or the experimenter doesn't know what condition the participant is in, but it's only one of them that doesn't know. So single blind means both participant and experimenter, double blind means both participant and experimenter, and single blind is one or the other. Okay, we've got a final wrapping it up with an exercise here. And why don't you guys try this on your own by pausing, and then we can go over it together. Okay, so we're going to test whether exercise increases life satisfaction. What is your IV and what is your DV? What are the levels of your IV? So you can design this however you want to do. If you haven't figured it out by now, your independent variable is exercise. Your dependent variable is life satisfaction. And you can do the levels however you want. You can have high, medium, low exercise. You can just have high and low. You could have 5 different levels, whatever you want. Any way that you decide to do it is okay. Okay, how can you maximize the effects of your manipulation? Well, one thing is for sure, You have got to make that manipulation as strong as possible. So have the exercise group, if you had just two groups, exercise and no exercise, make sure that that exercise group really exercises, and they exercise a lot. And make sure this group does not exercise at all. So to make those, spread those as much as possible. And then try and do a manipulation check to make sure that that group, that exercise group, really did exercise. So that kind of covers the manipulation check there. You would do that afterwards. Ask them how much they exercised. Ask them how much they were winded. Did their heart rate go up, etc. Do you have a placebo control? And if so, what is it? Well, you might want so the group who exercises actually takes some time out of their life to exercise. Now, the group who doesn't exercise, what are you going to have them do? Nothing? Do they just go on their life just as they usually do? Or would you want them to actually take some time doing something else, which is not exercise? For example, watching a movie or something like that. And so you could have the group that exercises for an hour, and the group that doesn't exercise watches a TV program for an hour. And then that would be a kind of a placebo control. Can we make the experiment single blind? And how would we make the experiment single blind? And so the question is, who can you blind? Well, you can't really blind the participants because they're going to know whether they're exercising or not. There's just no way to hide that from them. But can we blind the experimenter? Yeah, you probably can. We can measure life satisfaction without knowing who's in the exercise group and who is not in the exercise group. So can't make it double blind, but we can certainly make it single blind by blinding that experimenter, not letting them know when they collect the data who is in the exercise versus the control group. Okay, guys, I am done with chapter 11. I hope that you got through these videos, and if you did make it to the end of the video, tell me about my finger and what I did to it in an email, and I'll award you some extra credit. Write me an email, tell me what I did to my finger. Okay, this is what I did to my finger. I hit it with a damn sledgehammer, okay? That's what I did. Tell me that in an email, and I will give you extra credit. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.